Sort of.
Jerry, you got 30?
We're ready.
Ready? Welcome everyone to the Town of North Castle Zoning Board of Appeal meeting for July 7th. Thank you for your attendance. We have one application this evening. Lori, can we have a roll call?
Scott Sopnick,
Here.
Bob Greer,
Here.
John Stiefel, Lester Berkelhammer,
Here.
Joe Monticelli.
Here. Can we, as far as our minutes, does anybody review the minutes? Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Never when Lori does.
Can we have
Oh,
a
man, you probably
Accept them.
jinxed
I'll
it.
make a motion to approve the minutes. And I'll second.
second?
So,
Lori, we're gonna
that's how we roll.
open a public hearing for this application. Would you read the information?
Okay, we're gonna open the public hearing for Holderness and Bourne LLC, 12 Labriel Court, Armonk, New York, 10504, and known on the town tax assessment maps as section 104, 10704, block 2, lot 22, and located in a RELIP zoning district. In order to obtain a site plan approval for the proposed mix of uses, the applicant requires the following. Section 35557 of the town code, where the existing 35-space parking lot on site does not contain the minimum required 88 off-street parking spaces, requiring a variance of 53 off-street parking spaces.
Who will be speaking, sir?
I think Thomas, our architect, has some comment.
Your name, Tom, full name?
Thomas J. McDermott.
Thank
I'm
you.
the project architect from CPG Architects. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner of the property, Elizabeth Weiss, Herland Realty, and John Bourne and Alex Holderness. As Laura mentioned, we're here before you tonight requesting a parking variance of 53 spaces. We have 35 existing parking spaces. The town code requires 88 in an RELIP district, section 355-57. The project is located at 12 Labriola Court, also known as tax map 107.04-2-22. I'd like to just give a brief overview of the project. The intent is for Holderness and Bourne, which is a premium golf apparel brand, to occupy the existing building located at the end of Labriola Court. As you're all aware, it's not far from this location. At the end, it is an existing warehouse located here, and then an existing two-story office section here. The intent is to keep the building exactly the same and use it in a very similar use. We currently have an application before the planning board for an amended site plan approval. The minor modification to the use is that we're going to be doing embroidery. John actually is wearing one of his sweaters, an example of the embroidery that's done on site. They're currently housed in Rye, and they have several satellite warehouses, and the intent is to consolidate their operations to this one location here and make Holderness and Bourne's headquarters here in Armonk.
Excuse me, as a tenant?
Yes, as a tenant.
Yes, as a tenant.
For a 5-year lease, the
7-year
Seven.
initial term. And this is John Bourne speaking, co-founder of Holderness and Bourne. Initial 7-year lease term with 3 consecutive renewal options at 5 years each, so potential 22-year lease. And there's been conversation throughout the lease negotiations that, given the work that we're doing and how ideally situated the building is here in Armonk, and the building itself for our company now and our company over time, that there's a possibility of negotiating purchase at some point during that lease. So we're not.
But you're at least there for 7 years.
7 years as a minimum.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, with 3. I'm the landowner for Lou Realty. Just so you know, I live here in town. I live on the Bedford side and have been here for a number of years. My family has been up here since I want the 60s or 70s. My brother, who's my partner, lives in Bedford, a couple of blocks from us.
I
And
live in
John
Bedford.
actually also lives a couple of blocks from us. So it was our intent in looking for a tenant that we found somebody that was invested in Armonk and the Armonk way of life and was not going to disturb really Armonk. Nor did we want somebody who was looking for a 24/7. These guys are pretty much 9 to 5. They're not going to be loud and disturb people up the hill or anyone else. So we thought, as local people, that they were a fabulous fit.
And I'm happy to answer any questions about our intended use of the building.
Can I just ask another question?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, when you do this, embroidery and all the work you're gonna do there, how many employees would you guess you might have?
Yeah, so the purpose of this hearing is to discuss the parking variance. And I think it's important to have the former occupants and current owners of the building here because our uses were very similar. So we're going to be warehousing in most of the warehouse spaces. We could flip to the other side. Maybe. So this is wreckage, not exactly existing condition. In fact, there's a little more wreckage now, but similar configuration. What was there for, how long did you operate your business?
88 was the C of O. H-Weiss was there, we sold kitchen equipment. And we were there until we sold in 2017. We had a tenant after that who was our purchaser.
Right, so similar use in the sense that the office is going to be our global headquarters. With a
And
showroom.
back there, you're gonna store
And
stuff.
then back here, we're gonna store stuff, do some embroidery, which I believe technically is classified as light
Yeah,
manufacturing.
it's considered, so what got us here, now I'm just gonna interrupt, sorry, was they were before the planning board, and I talked with Adam, I don't know if Adam just joined.
Adam's on the Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom. Hi, Adam.
Yeah, I'm here.
So Adam, we had a preliminary meeting with Adam and with John Keller, and went through the project. We were before the planning board on June 13th. And then after that meeting, I updated our parking calculations based on including this light manufacturing area here for the embroidery, which was a little more stringent. I think it was one per 375 per square feet. But then I think our final parking calculation was actually based on the number of employees, if I remember correctly.
I guess
How many?
So, right, to answer the question. Right now, we have a 15-person operating crew and we run one shift. That shift is 8 to
Does that include
4:45,
both
and
uses?
that's on the warehouse side.
Where?
On the office side, we, through COVID and everything, our hiring has been relatively dispersed.
How many?
Find talent where we can.
Originally.
Yeah, 15 on the warehouse side,
Right.
day one. That could scale to 25. One thing you need to know about a warehouse workforce is they, at least ours, I don't know if you found this, they often travel together, they're often family, and they often don't actually have their own vehicles. They're being dropped off by their husband, who then goes and does whatever they're doing and so forth. So of course, I would say this in this meeting, but I will tell you truthfully, it is not a one-to-one human being to car ratio in this workforce. On the office side, it probably is. Everybody there is in a different, they're all college educated, doing well, and they own their own cars or are leasing them. On this side, day one, we'll have about only 8 people.
How many?
8. Over time, the 7-year term of the lease and beyond, certainly that will scale. But for the first 7 years, I would imagine, of our business's use of this, the current lease, the number of parking spaces is adequate to the number of, to the use of the building. So that's
Excuse me, what
all I
about,
wanted to
sorry,
editorialize
keep
there.
interrupting.
Yeah.
What about visitors? I mean, do people come, to visit with you, to give you
Sure.
orders, or is it more online?
Most of the time, we have a sales team of 15 people. They're all based in their territories across the country. So most of the order taking is on site around the country. If you guys.
But
are-
I mean, it's not,
So
not
people
people
visiting
pulling up
here
to say, give me 10
once
shirts.
a day.
Yeah.
There will have some.
You're not having a storefront.
No, there's no
no
store.
retail
Right.
whatsoever.
No,
That's
no.
what
Oh.
basically what I was trying to
Right,
say.
so this is not a retail showroom. This is a showroom for the occasional person who wants to come and see Wilderness and Born HQ. They want to take a look in
Get
the
your
warehouse
embroidery
side and
thing.
see
There's
all
no
the
cash registers,
machines
there's no
going.
POS.
No, there's no transactions
Right.
happening here.
So
Okay,
far,
what
you've got a possibility of 25 in the warehouse, 15 in the office, and how many embroiderers?
That would be included.
That's inclusive of the embroiderers.
That's
The
everybody.
entire building,
Okay, that includes, so it's 25 and 15.
40 people.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that has to be understood, and the board will understand
No,
is,
I
is this this variance shouldn't be granted, is not personal. It's a
Runs with
variance
the
that
property.
runs with the property.
Understood.
So, it will be, probably, assuming it's granted, it'll be conditioned on compliance with the site plan, and I think Adam's listening to me, so if something happens and you're gonna, you start making hamburgers there,
Right.
it'll be a change of use, and the site plan will be violated, and
I,
conditionally, the variance will go up in smoke.
Understood.
Okay.
Related to this site plan
Adam,
with
is that
this,
how,
with this use.
I just want to say that the lease would go up in smoke at that point.
Right.
But that's beside.
Yeah, because it's, Adam, is this, any site plan would be tied to the use that is being proposed?
Correct, correct. And I think it's important,
Well, hold on, it can't be the exact use.
yes, it would be the exact use. It would be this combination of office, warehouse, and manufacturing.
But it
Just be
doesn't have
preface-
to be necessarily this company.
No,
If another
no,
company
no.
wanted to use it that way.
Correct, correct.
Or
And
else
that's
it
really,
Would have to come in back to the planning board.
No, but what I'm saying is there's, if another company comes along and they don't make hamburgers, but they can
Right.
sort of comply with the general.
If they can comply with the site plan.
Right.
Right.
that would come back on us, not them.
Well, what I'm trying to say is you don't want to make it so tight it's silly.
Okay, I've heard all the comments, but my concern is this is a request for a substantial variance. There's no question about that.
Yeah,
Understood. You understand? And certainly one of the key factors would be how many people are going to be on premises and working there. And what's your current total again?
We got to 40 and kind of not day one.
Now,
That's-
how
that's-
flexible is that? Is that going to move up or down in the near future, or you don't know?
It's hard to say, but that's me thinking this building is pretty rocking and rolling,
that's,
at that
year
point,
5, year 7.
right, at that point, if we were, we would be thinking alternate shifts. So maybe there's a second shift that goes from 4 to, 8 to 4 and then 4 to
In
whatever.
other words,
Okay,
those people are coming, the other
Right,
first
those
shift
cars are being
leaves,
swapped
one
out.
leaves, they're just being swapped out.
But
Here's
Lester,
the problem.
Lester, you understand that the requirement is not based on people.
Right, it's based on,
It's based on the use, and each of these uses has different requirements.
Square footage.
Well,
Square footage.
But they're
So,
kind of tied together,
what-
the people and the use.
well, they're asking for a variance, and they're telling you that they have 35 spots, and they're really at the maximum at the present time, they're only gonna have 40 people, and if it ends up being too many, then they don't have enough parking.
Well,
So
that would be simple then we could reduce the required variance. They're looking for 53. Why can't we then cut down the number of off-street parking
because
spaces?
there's a
So
requirement.
they require 88 because of when you
I
put
understand.
together the three uses, you can't change that.
That's a
I'm
statutory.
not planning on changing that. But if you go on the premises, I did, there's not 88 parking spaces around there.
There's not, there's 35 or 33.
Well, that's on premises.
Yep.
Off premises, you wouldn't have
I
that.
understand.
You're not
you know,
asking
what
for
this
all
zone-
premises.
No, we're not asking for
No.
that. And, with all due respect to the town code, I understand how it's written and why it's written, but the reality is we will never, ever, even at max capacity, have 88 cars on
No.
ever, not even close.
Well, and
No
furthermore,
one is
yeah.
thinking you would,
Right.
okay?
It's just that this particular variance runs with
With the
this-
property.
with the property
But
and the
it's
site
also
plan.
tied to the use,
And-
right? And so
Correct,
I think that
correct.
there's a nice condition there that allows this board to feel comfortable that, you know, if Holderness and Bourne decides to leave and another applicant comes along, there's a very good chance that they're gonna be before you before the.
No, they'll have to go to.
They'll go to the
Obviously,
planning
they'll have to go to
board,
the planning board, right, first.
and then they have to come
And then
back
they have to
here,
come back.
and it would be a whole new
Just
application.
trying to
Understood.
explain this to Lester, that there's, you know, a difference, that what you're telling him is why at this particular time, given the fact that the planning board seems to be amenable to this, it is the fact that only 40 people at maximum are gonna be there for the using the 33 spots should give you some solace
Well, let me ask you this.
on the substantial question, Lester.
No, let me ask you this, Jerry, can we, if we granted a variance, can we make conditional on limiting the number of people on premises?
My own feeling on that, and you know it, is that since the planning board has authority, even if you grant the variance, they have to comply with the planning board. You leave that to the planning board. That's my suggestion.
I would also say, I don't even know how that would be enforced.
Well,
Right, yeah.
we can't leave.
From a practical standpoint. I mean, I understand that.
It's not like a special use permit where we have to come back every 3
Correct.
years and have to show compliance,
Correct.
right? So this, I mean, this is a variance that's gonna run with the property, so that's difficult to police.
And the compliance will be with the planning board, and if there's a violation of, they'll have to go back to the planning board, and that should be sufficient to mitigate the substantiality.
And the only thing, that I would also,
At what point does it get to the-
What?
the only thing I would also add, Les, is the amount of people is not necessarily correlated to the amount of vehicles.
Yeah, well, it may not be, but on the other hand,
It may
if you
not
have
be.
50 people working there, then you have,
The potential for 50 cars,
Yeah,
I
think-
understand.
I think the square footage calculation on what's represented as the blue area, which is a warehouse, which is mostly boxes of beautiful, wonderful, the best in the world shirts, and no human
And sweaters.
activity. That, what is it, 301 per 350 here in the
No,
blue?
it's 1 per 1,200,
Okay.
but I.
Even at 1 per 1,200, that if everybody had to comply to the letter of the law, we would have nothing but parking lots across this town and every other town that had that rule, unnecessary parking lots. I understand the desire to limit the number of people parking on the street or in other public ways, and we would always comply with all the public parking and other restrictions and be respectful of the town and our neighbors. But this calculation that got us to 88 is, in my opinion, it does not properly
Well, the other-
represent
Well,
the
that-
need for this type of.
Right,
And that's not
that
what we're
is
here to
right.
talk about.
We're not
but
here to talk about
yeah.
that. That is what it is.
That's a philosophical
Yes,
question.
that's a whole
Can
other
I say
issue.
a couple of things?
Sure, ma'am.
First of all, okay, we operated H. Weiss in that building since '88.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Operated H. Weiss. we-
Oh,
we
April,
sold-
Nick, I
yeah,
didn't, I'm sorry,
okay.
couldn't hear.
Since '88. And what we found, which is pretty historical, is that we had people coming in by bus. The bus stop is
It's
at
at
the,
the corner of Labriola. and
Labriola.
Old Route 22.
yes, or the one that.
Workers.
Workers,
Right, right.
or here in town. We also found that there was parking space around the circle and up and down the drive to the back. Where more often than not, the people that were going there were people from Terminex. Okay,
Okay.
so we, you know.
Look, at
there's
the end of the day, this is not a
parking.
storefront. So
No.
just based upon what you've explained here, at least from my standpoint, I don't foresee any issue or any scenario where you would have anything remotely near to 80 odd vehicles
That's
trying
just
to.
a necessary calculation
Right.
according.
And
to
I get
these,
that,
you know.
and I think that's the issue that, Les is thinking about the what if scenario.
So let me
Yeah,
ask another practical question. See, I see this, so you have, what is 35? What is?
35 now.
35 are existing.
Okay,
So
so
again,
now
we pull the
let's
site
say,
plan back
now
up.
let me just ask a practical question.
So this is what exists currently. The intent is for us to restripe this existing asphalt drive-through.
Okay.
And there are 35 spaces there right now.
Okay, so let's
For
say
the
there's
original
35
approved site
spaces. And really today, it could be, you need 30, you need 42, no one knows, it's up and down. I see this, and maybe I'm looking at it wrong, that if we granted this variance, it's more of a problem for the tenant if too many cars came, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Huh?
Why would it be a problem for the tenant?
Well,
Because he'd have to
If
tell
he
his
gets a variance,
employees
it's not
they
a
can't park there.
Pardon me?
If, let's say there were 35 spots and 40 cars pulled up, he'd have to tell 5 tenants, we don't have room for you.
No, they
5
park- If
workers.
he gets the variance, they can park on the street.
They can't park on this
So
street.
that's what you're looking for.
No,
Off-street
no,
parking.
no.
No, no,
No,
no,
no,
no, no, Les,
No,
no.
Les.
They're not looking for
Off-street.
off-street parking.
They're
Hmm?
not, they're not looking for off-street parking.
Their plan to the
I'm saying
planning
it's
board
kinda
here
your
is
problem,
to
yeah.
use these 35 spots for their company. That's what they're asking for. They say they're not gonna use 88,
They don't need it.
and they're not proposing to park in the streets or to rent spaces from anybody.
So
They're
the
not,
other-
you're not asking for anything
Beyond what
off
it
your
is.
site.
Right,
off
and
the
the other
site,
part
correct.
that I want to just touch upon is that when the Weiss Company occupied the building, they had their own fleet for
Yes.
deliveries. And Holderness and Bourne doesn't do that. They use FedEx or UPS.
Regular
and
carriers.
Carriers for freight. Those deliveries are scheduled and the shipments are scheduled.
Yep.
So that can all be coordinated. So that's one.
And that's all happened. This is a truck court.
Right.
That comes to the back. These are the loading bays.
And I looked.
So that activity is separated intelligently from the common
Yeah,
parking.
that'll be the planning board will tell you how to do that.
Right, and I talked with Adam, and I really exhausted our possibilities. I looked at trying to get any parking in and around here, but the problem is to get a truck to come in here, to be able to back in and then pull back out and leave. There was no way to get any additional parking back in this area.
Could be
We
talking
did
an
look at
18-wheeler.
the possibility
Right,
of,
yes.
of having parking along here, but the problem is that this wouldn't technically be one-way parking, because whatever comes in here has to go back out that
Right.
way. And you wouldn't be able to get you wouldn't have that 24-foot aisle. So
So
we
when
just
we thought
decided that,
about
you know
it-
what, let's eliminate all that from the application. We'll just go with what's existing, and, the parking calculation is what it is.
When we thought about it,
Are
like
you-
I
are
said,
you
we
saying
said
that-
30,
Based on your suggestion that in the future, as this goes into operation, commences, that you'll be able to accommodate all parking on your own premises.
yes.
Yes, we
Yes,
feel
yes,
confident that
yes.
we can.
Yes, and if we were not confident in that, we could have tried to find other of these green areas to pave and presented an entirely different set of
Well, there's-
plans
right,
going
yeah, there are
into the
certain
site
sets
plan
of
approval.
constraints on the
We
property that-
decided that that wasn't necessary. It's not what we wanted for our use of the building or the aesthetics of the building, or it would have been unnecessary. So that's really the only way to close the
So you're going to be able to
variance.
accommodate all employee cars on premises.
Yes.
Yes.
And if,
Then, let me
here's
ask
what I would say
Terry.
is, let's say I'm wrong. And we can't. That's our problem.
That's
It
what I was
doesn't mean
saying,
we
yeah,
say,
it's your
hey, everyone
problem.
just go park on the shit. We have to abide by the parking
You'll
rules
control that. right?
that
You'll control that.
exists. If that means I need to go to our neighbor and say, we need to rent 10 of your spots, I will go do that and pay whatever it costs to that neighbor, or
Or go
figure
back and,
something else out.
or go back and go through this process again to perhaps pave an area
Right.
if you make that determination,
Sure.
that's something
If
you want to do.
if it becomes necessary, we will
don't
we'll
foresee
find a
that.
solution, but we wouldn't be
It
here.
sounds like
Yeah,
a problem that could be
otherwise-
solved
Terry, I have a
with
question for
Uber
you.
rather than paying.
Is the planning board going
Or
to
a
monitor
bus.
this?
Or a bus.
Any-
The
Or what?
planning board does not monitor. The zoning board doesn't monitor, the planning board. If they violate, the building inspector will get involved, or the neighbors will get involved, and the building inspector will go out and see there's a
What would you
violation.
consider a violation?
Violation
We grant the variance. What would you consider a violation?
of the site plan, if the change of use.
Well, a change of use that doesn't necessarily affect the parking.
Well, it would, it
Could,
could.
it
Well, it could, or we
it
don't
could
know.
do it.
It depends.
They made an application in which they presented the type of uses that they're going to.
I understand that.
Okay,
And we're concerned about head count.
head count, and they're telling you what they have. I mean, how many more for this project, how many more workers are they gonna need in the
So,
In the warehouse.
So
All
in the
all I'm
warehouse,
saying is
okay,
this.
is
I'm
limited
asking-
by the use. They have presented this evidence
I
and
understand
presenting it to you, so they're
All I'm
saying,
asking is this, suppose they change their operation and requires other numbers of people. Who's gonna monitor that? You say nobody monitors it.
To go back to the
Nobody
planning board.
Will not.
if they change it, they change their operation,
They go to
and
the,
they start using retail and stuff, then they
No,
violated,
that's, yeah.
that's a violation of site.
That's
Are
plan.
you saying they
complete
changed
violation.
the amount of
Wait a minute.
people or the
If they
use?
bring machinery in to do something, to make stuff, and instead of just having embroiderers, they make it, it's like a widget factory, they violated the site plan. If somebody finds it out, then the building inspector gets involved and gives them a notice of violation.
The other piece I want to mention is that embroidery is only a small portion of what they do, and John can speak a little bit more to this, that not every piece of apparel that leaves the
No, I
warehouse is
understand that, but
embroidered.
I'm trying to address Les's, I understand where you're coming, Les's question. He still worries about this number that you say will not go over 35. Virgin, what's gonna happen? And the probability.
Well, the answer is-
let Jerry finish. I'd like to.
And the answer is, for the most part, it's their problem, because they can only have 35 cars parked there. They can't come in and decide to park, back to back and stuff like that. That would be a violation, and the neighbor would say it, or the building inspector would say it, and they'd be in court, and they'd have to, change their site plan. So it's their problem. It's like everybody else that comes here. At first, it's policing.
Well, my
When
question
you
is
give a
technical, my
variance-
question may be a technical one. If they go over the 35, if we grant the variance, they would be able to park on the street or not?
No,
No,
no.
this is
Grant the
on,
variance?
this is on their property.
this is
I
only
understand
their
that, that's
property.
not my question.
They
Can-
could do
in other words,
whatever
wait a second.
legal on that
Parking
street.
spot,
Could-
then
could-
someone
all
can
right,
park.
can
let's-
only already
let me-
has 35
let's-
cars
To
on
be
the
fair,
property.
let's say the CEO here, there's 35 spots, and he can't come in. Can he go out and find a legal spot in the street?
Yeah.
Same as everybody
Legal.
else, yes.
It's gotta be legal,
Legal.
but he can't park illegally.
I understand. But
Yeah.
Right, and the worst case is, what would happen in that case is we would find a remedy.
No, no,
And, either, building, whatever, but what you're
I
saying,
think
like,
Jerry answered the question.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to.
I think it's
I
also.
think Les understands it.
Let Adam and these.
It's important to think about what the delta is here, right? So there's an existing office building and an existing warehouse that is approved. So if another tenant came in and was just going to do office and warehousing, it wouldn't come to the planning board and it wouldn't need a variance. I
but it
don't
would
know
be in
the-
violation if they did.
What's that?
The
Would not
building
be.
was
in violation.
approved in violation of.
No,
the-
it would.
Well,
I don't
no.
know that. I don't know the history. If the current property owner is there, maybe she has some insight as to how that building got constructed with that little amount of parking. I don't know if there was a variance issued in the past. I'm not sure.
When we built, we came before the town board multiple times.
town
And
board or the,
everyone,
planning board.
everyone.
Oh,
So
Oh, everyone,
Yeah.
because everyone had it.
we went in front of everyone.
Yeah.
We did everything legally and appropriate.
I'm sure.
Transparent.
However, I will tell you that my father built the building. He's deceased. The architect is deceased, as was every member that was on every board in town. So we, to the best of our knowledge, got everything approved the appropriate way.
I'm sure that's the case because you would not have gotten a CO. And so, yes, I don't doubt it.
And
I
more
just,
than that, you would have come back to us. However, I know that the parking there in the area there is parking around Labriola Court, which our employees never used, but employees for pretty much everywhere else uses constantly.
Yeah, well, that's,
Yeah, but I
And
think
that's-
my
really
point
wouldn't
here,
go there.
I get it,
We're looking at
but
what we have in front of
My-
us.
yeah.
I hear you.
but my point,
here's-
my point is, it's already a legal operating office and
Right.
warehouse. So what
Yes.
we're really talking about is how much is this small manufacturing component going to exacerbate the parking situation?
all.
And it might be, it might not be at all, and that's what the
Right.
board has to determine.
Correct.
So that is, Adam has addressed the question the way I would. You know, I don't know what else. You gotta open up the public hearing now.
Yeah, you know, we see what's in front of us. We had a lot of questions and answers. I think we're at a point right now where what they're asking for is what they feel 35, 36, 34 or 40 is going to be, and not be a problem.
And again, I don't mean to repeat myself, but if it's a problem, it's a problem for them because
Right.
they can't violate laws. So they're gonna do, if they wound up and they need 10 more cars, he's gonna lease it somewhere else. Or he's gonna, create his own system where he picks
Blacktop
people up.
area.
But it's
Parking
their
lot.
problem
That's-
as a tenant.
Yeah.
To manage.
Is there anybody at home or on Zoom or Adam, any more questions?
Adam's the only one on Zoom. We don't have the public.
Adam, any questions?
No, just what I said. I think you're looking at this small manufacturing component and determining whether or not that's going to have a significant impact. That's really what we're talking about.
But the planning board looked at that issue.
Yes,
You
yeah,
know, I'm
The
talking
planning
about-
board looked at the site plan issue. We noted that it didn't have enough parking and you're evaluating the parking issue. The planning board's not doing that.
They're not gonna do that.
No, that's
I don't
what
think
you
that's
guys
their-
are doing.
No, I think that's purview.
And we're here to
responsibility.
approve what you're asking. That's what we're here for.
So they didn't, Adam, they didn't have any other issues other than.
No, because the site's staying the same.
Okay, all right.
The footprint's the same, they're not doing anything in there.
Right. They're
You
just
say,
they're just
basically,
doing really
have
interior
two
renovation.
embroidery.
Component.
Okay, anybody, the board members, do we have any other questions or want to bring anything up before we ask for a motion?
Jerry, as far as the motion is concerned, is there any reference to any kind of condition on the number of employees?
No,
You don't like conditions?
no, the only condition should be
The vehicles.
subject to the approval of the site plan by the planning board. I mean,
That should be a condition.
If you could, it is in there, but if it makes you happier, state
No, it's not.
it. They can't.
They can't get this ratified
They get
unless.
a
they-
variance, they're not gonna get a CMO without getting the site plan
Okay.
approved. So they get a second bite of the public gets a second bite of the apple to look at this.
All right, is there another question and more information? Lester, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion subject to your correction, Jerry. All right, I make a motion that we grant the variance for 53 off-street parking spaces. And going through the criteria, based on the statements made here at the hearing, will not result in an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or the detriment to nearby properties. Whether the benefit sought can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue. We've explored that here, and I think the applicant has indicated the use of the premises consistent with the granting of the variance. While it may arguably be substantial based on the presentation by the applicant, basically this is a continuation of the past and it has not reduced any problems. And while it's substantial, subject to those qualifications, it would not be deemed substantial in entire view. It will not have an adverse impact in the neighborhood. And while it's a self-created difficulty, that by itself could not warrant denial of the variance. And for these reasons, I move that we grant a variance for 53 off-street parking spaces.
Thank you, Russ. Can we have a second, please? Bob seconds, roll call?
Scott Stopnick,
Yes.
Bob Greer,
Yes.
Les Bertelhammer,
Yeah.
Joe Monticelli.
Yes, thank you very much, it's been passed. Thank you for coming in front of us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I appreciate your stewardship.
Nice meeting you too.
Are we there?
Is that all? Find that cover.
Is this, all right?
Good luck to
It's
you.
only one.
Thank you, appreciate it. Stop by anytime. We're not gonna be ready for you.
No, Stop by my car.
If you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
down
no,
now,
I'm
you'll
gonna
see
help
all
you.
my stuff.